Northern California, late 1960s, a time of cultural revolution, peace movements, and change. But beneath that optimism, a shadow was forming. A killer who hunted couples in secluded places. A killer who wrote letters to newspapers. A killer who taunted police with coded messages. He gave himself a name the world would never forget. Zodiac. More than half a century later, some of his crimes remain officially unsolved. Who was he? How many victims did he really claim? And how did one man terrify an entire region while staying hidden? This is the complete story of the Zodiac Killer case. The case begins near Benicia, California, on Lake Herman Road. David Arthur Faraday, only 17 years old, had picked up Betty Lou Jensen, just 16, for what many believe was their very first official date. They were young, excited, and standing at the beginning of lives they had barely started to live. Sometime after 10 p.m., the couple parked in a gravel turnout along Lake Herman Road. The area was remote, dark, and silent except for the occasional passing car. There were no nearby houses, no streetlights, no one to hear a scream. To David and Betty Lou, it was likely just another peaceful place to talk, laugh, and spend time together. But somewhere in that darkness, someone was watching. No one knows exactly what happened next. Investigators believe another vehicle approached the turnout sometime later that night. Whether the stranger had followed them, chosen them at random, or had been hunting for victims remains one of the great unanswered questions of the case. Then, violence erupted. At approximately 11:15 p.m., the scene was discovered, and it was horrifying. David Faraday was found near the car, shot once in the head at close range. His young life ended instantly. Betty Lou Jensen had apparently tried to run for her life into the darkness. She never made it far. She was chased down and shot multiple times in the back, collapsing on the cold ground only a short distance away. When their bodies were found, the scene shocked investigators. There were no witnesses, no signs of robbery, no clear motive, no obvious suspect. To police, it looked like a senseless double murder. But they had no idea this crime would soon become the first chapter in one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries. On the night of July 4th, 1969, while fireworks lit the skies across America, terror was about to return in Vallejo. Just after midnight, Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19, were sitting inside a parked car at Blue Rock Springs Park, a quiet lover's lane known as a place where young couples often went for privacy. Then headlights appeared behind them. Another vehicle slowly pulled into the parking area and stopped near their car. For a moment, it just sat there in the darkness. Then, without warning, it drove away. The couple may have thought the stranger had left, but minutes later, the car returned. This time, it stopped behind them once again. A man stepped out, moving toward their vehicle. In one hand, he carried a flashlight, in the other a gun. He approached the passenger side window, raised the beam into their faces, blinding them in the dark. Then he opened fire. Gunshots shattered the silence. Bullets tore through the car in seconds. Michael Mageau was hit multiple times, but somehow survived. Darlene Ferrin was critically wounded, bleeding heavily beside him. The attacker then turned and walked back toward his car. But the nightmare was not over. Moments later, he returned to the vehicle once more and fired again into the helpless victims before disappearing into the night. Ferrin was rushed for help, but later died from her injuries. Mageau, despite severe wounds, lived to tell investigators what happened. But the most chilling part came next. Less than an hour later, the phone rang at the Vallejo Police Department. The caller was calm, emotionless, controlled. "I want to report a murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you'll find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year." Then he hung up. That final sentence sent shockwaves through investigators. "I also killed those kids last year." It was a direct reference to the unsolved murders of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen on Lake Herman Road in December 1968. For the first time, police realized they were not dealing with two separate tragedies. They were hunting one killer, a murderer who struck young couples in isolated places, and who was now bold enough to call police himself. On July 31st, 1969, the case took a terrifying new turn. 3 major newspapers in Northern California each received a nearly identical letter. They were sent to the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. The writer claimed responsibility for the recent murders and included disturbing details that had never been released publicly. Details only the killer or investigators would likely know. But that was not all. Inside each envelope was part of a strange coded message. Together, the 3 pieces formed a 408 symbol cipher. The sender demanded that all newspapers print his message on their front pages, threatening more violence if they refused. The public was stunned. A murderer was no longer hiding in silence. He was speaking directly to the world. Soon after, a schoolteacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty Hardin managed to crack the cipher. Its opening words were chilling. "I like killing people because it is so much fun." The rest of the message was filled with twisted boasting, threats, and bizarre claims about collecting slaves for the afterlife. But despite all the horror inside the code, one crucial detail was missing. He never revealed his name. Then on August 7th, 1969, another letter arrived. This time, the writer opened with a line that would become infamous. "This is the Zodiac speaking." With those 5 words, the killer gave himself a name, and a legend of fear was born. On September 27th, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, this time in broad daylight. At Lake Berryessa in Napa County, college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were enjoying a peaceful afternoon near the water. The lake was calm, the weather clear, and nothing seemed unusual. Then a stranger appeared. He slowly approached them wearing a terrifying black executioner-style hood. The man carried a gun and spoke calmly. He claimed to be an escaped convict who needed money and a car to flee. Then he ordered the couple to tie each other up. Moments later, the real horror began. Without warning, he pulled out a knife and stabbed them repeatedly. After the assault, the killer walked to Hartnell's car and wrote a chilling message on the door. It was a cold, calculated record of his crimes, his first visible signature at a murder scene. Brian Hartnell survived the attack. Cecilia Shepard fought for her life, but died from her wounds 2 days later. As if that wasn't enough, the killer later called police from Napa to report the crime himself. The Zodiac was no longer just killing. He was performing for the world. On October 11th, 1969, the Zodiac changed his pattern and spread fear to the heart of San Francisco. That night, Paul Stein, a 29-year-old cab driver, picked up a passenger near Union Square. It seemed like an ordinary fare. The destination was Presidio Heights, one of the city's quiet residential neighborhoods. When the cab reached the corner of Washington and Cherry Streets, the ride turned into murder. The passenger suddenly shot Stein in the head at close range. Then, in a chilling display of calmness, the killer leaned over the body, tore away a piece of the victim's blood-stained shirt, and stepped out of the cab. He didn't run. He simply walked away into the night. 3 teenagers watching from a nearby window saw the attack and immediately called police. Officers rushed to the area, but a critical dispatch error reportedly described the suspect as a black male instead of a white male. That mistake may have changed everything. Some reports suggest officers encountered a suspicious man nearby, but allowed him to continue walking, unaware they may have been face-to-face with the Zodiac Killer. Days later, the truth arrived by mail. A letter was sent to the press containing a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt, proving the killer's responsibility beyond doubt. This murder shocked California. The Zodiac was no longer hiding on dark country roads or attacking isolated couples. He had entered the city, and now no one felt safe. After the Paul Stein murder, the Zodiac's terror only grew stronger. He kept sending letters to newspapers and police, demanding attention and spreading fear across California. In some messages, he threatened to attack school buses, warning that children could be his next targets. Parents panicked. Streets felt unsafe. Police departments across different cities struggled to work together and stop a killer who seemed always one step ahead. Then, in November 1969, Zodiac mailed another coded message. Unlike the first code, this one could not be solved. Years passed, then decades. The letters continued, filled with murder claims, body counts, and new threats. Some were believed real, others were likely hoaxes. Soon, the mystery became bigger than the man himself. No one knew which messages were truly Zodiac, and which were just shadows in his name. As the investigation expanded, detectives faced a disturbing possibility. Was the Zodiac responsible for even more crimes than officially known? Over the years, investigators debated whether several unsolved attacks and disappearances could be linked to him. Some cases showed eerie similarities. Others had only loose connections. But with limited evidence and conflicting theories, the question remained unanswered. Did the Zodiac have more victims, or did his growing legend create mysteries of its own? Over the decades, many names were linked to the Zodiac case, but no one was ever charged. Arthur Lee Allen, the most famous suspect. He was investigated several times, and certain circumstantial details raised suspicion. But fingerprints, handwriting, and later DNA evidence did not conclusively match him. Allen denied involvement and died in 1992. Other suspects, many other men, were suggested over the years, including individuals with military experience, criminal records, or ties to the crime locations. But in the end, none were ever definitively proven to be the Zodiac Killer. After remaining a mystery for more than 50 years, the infamous 340 cipher was finally solved in December 2020 by an international team of private codebreakers. But the breakthrough brought no identity. The message did not reveal the Zodiac's name. Instead, it contained more taunts, threats, and disturbing references to death. Even after decades, the killer was still mocking the world. The solution reignited global interest in the case, but did not solve it. Today, DNA testing, digital forensics, and re-examined evidence continue to offer hope that one day the Zodiac's true identity may finally be uncovered. The Zodiac Killer officially claimed 37 victims. Investigators confirmed far fewer direct connections. The exact total remains unknown. What makes the case unforgettable is not only the violence, it is the manipulation. The letters, the codes, the public fear, the fact that he seemed to vanish. Families of victims still seek closure. Retired detectives still revisit evidence. Researchers still compare names, prints, timelines, and DNA. Some mysteries fade. This one never did, because somewhere in the silence between facts and legend, the Zodiac Killer remains unidentified.